The Chicago Bulls made a number of trades ahead of the NBA deadline. And in one of those trades, we shipped off a player who was a young player. And at his new destination, it seems that he got a little game that the Chicago Bulls could have been taking a closer look at. That is Ousmane Dieng. Did the Chicago Bulls miss out on the opportunity to scout him properly? We're going to talk about it. And then at the end of today's show, we're going to talk about Montes Buzelis setting his sights on playing on Sunday, which is the All-Star game in the near future. We'll see. Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down, but you got to hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Boys Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down on today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, ready to talk Bulls basketball, even when they give you a headache, man, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We keep it and stay rolling, even through the dark days, man. It is what it is. But hey, the Chicago Bulls, man, if we remember correctly, they made a number of trades that got us Anthony Simons in the building. They got us guys like Jaden Ivey in the building. They got us Yabusele in the building. In one of those trades, we got Colin Sexton and Ousmane Dieng. But then the Bulls ultimately shipped Dieng out to the Milwaukee Bucks, and then the Chicago Bulls eventually went out there and acquired a guy like Nick Richards. And for the sake of discussion, I got to ask you right off the bat, because I know some of you all are avid basketball watchers, and you've seen Ousmane Dieng last game versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he dropped 19 points, had 11 rebounds, had 6 assists, and 1 steal. And you like, hold on, this little young fella got some game. And if you compare that to Nick Richards, in your evaluation, do you feel like the Chicago Bulls missed out on an opportunity to scout a younger player? Now, when we compare the two, we look at Nick Richards, who's a 6-year veteran, and with his 3 games for the Chicago Bulls, has averaged 10 points, 5.7 rebounds, and 0.3 assists, shooting 66% from the 3. I will also add on just 1 attempt per game, and he's averaging 50% from the field. I will also mention that he is an expiring contract on the Chicago Bulls books as it currently stands today. When you talk about Ousmane Dieng, he is 4 years in the league. And with his 3 games with the Milwaukee Bucks, his averages looks like this: 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 50% shooting from the 3 on 5 attempts, 56% shooting from the field. How do you guys look at that right now? Or do you necessarily feel like 3 games is just not a large sample size for the sake of discussion? Because I do agree, it's a small sample size. But when you watch and you tell you, and your eyes tell you what you can work with, me personally, I would lean into saying that Nick Richards, in my personal opinion, is more closer to traditional big man per se, more traditional guy. He is a bigger guy too, standing at 6'11" versus Ousmane Dieng standing at 6'9". And some of the things that I seen Dieng do versus the Oklahoma City Thunder while sitting down watching that game, I'm like, hold on, this man leading the break. Hold on, this man coming off a screen shooting a 3. I said, hold on, man, this man making some nice passes. It makes you think like, hold on, what was the scouting department doing when they said, yeah, go ahead and trade him? I understand the need for the capital that came back in return, and I'm not shutting down Nick Richardson whatsoever, because again, a 3-game sample size is just not large enough for me to say we absolutely missed. But for discussion, I will say it would have been intriguing to see how this player could fit with the Chicago Bulls, considering his youth, 22 years old, as he currently is right now, while Nick Richards is 28 years old. And I think that a 22-year-old fits the timeline more so with the Chicago Bulls than a 28-year-old. Not saying that he can stick around for much longer, but just pretty much saying that, hey, why wouldn't you want to continue to look at younger guys with experience in this league? Because to be quite frank with you, if you're looking at Nick Richards, you're looking at his career, the 10 points that if he ends at 10 points with the Chicago Bulls, that'll be a career high in point totals for him. While you looking at a guy like Dieng, who's starting to get things going, only 4 years in the league, 2 years behind Nick Richards, but only 22 years old, so you have a longer runway to work with said player. But I'm not ready to make that determination and just stamp it that the Chicago Bulls missed out on him because we don't necessarily know what he's going to be. You know what I mean? But I will say through the 3-game sample size, it would have been interesting to see what this young player can do in the Chicago Bulls uniform, especially consider coming from a developmental program like the Oklahoma City Thunder, because I believe they have a really solid program when you consider the number of players that have developed under their watch. Now, should we consider the Chicago Bulls not wanting to go into the offseason? And y'all keep it real. Should we consider the Chicago Bulls not wanting to go into the offseason with another body that has a contract as a restricted free agent, to where the Chicago Bulls have to make that decision and go out there and see if anybody's going to match the offer? Let's keep it real. With some, do we believe that the chances were going to be really, really high that somebody puts in a offer sheet for Ousmane Dieng right now versus just allowing Nick Richards to come off the books if you don't want to bring him back? I think it's a little bit more tedious when it comes to the work, but if you're the Chicago Bulls, you need to be trying to see how many good players you can keep in the building as possible. Because if we talking about the others who are on expiring contracts like Colin Sexton and Anthony Simons, I don't know what's going to happen with them. But I would think more than likely, depending on the direction of the team, you will, unless the Bulls cough up a lot of money, one or maybe both of those guys will not be returning in Anthony Simons and Colin Sexton. But maybe that is a part of the plan, to keep your options open, to go out there and acquire younger talent still. But at the same time, we've seen those teams that want to go out there and include some younger players within their rotations still have some type of veteran leadership that can be provided for a basketball team that wants to change the stigma around the organization. And the only restricted free agent that the Chicago Bulls currently have to worry about right now is Jaden Ivey. Did you not want to have two? That's why you elected to get rid of one. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And when you look at Rob Dillingham, the Bulls have a club option on him, so there is no restricted free agency coming up for him. Or do you feel like it would have just been too congested with the number of players to where you can get a closer eye on said players? It's a lot of different things and a lot of different ways that the Chicago Bulls could have played this. But it does question, like, hey, it brings us back to the damn same square that we always have to return to. And what is the plan? Like, we get it. You look like you're tanking, but is this just, let's get the best draft position that we can possibly get in the lottery, and then we'll move accordingly after we find out our position? What is the actual plan here? Because it seems like, yeah, we want to go with young players with experience, but you also have to do some scouting too. You cannot be lazy with this. That's my only thing. But I would like to also ask, is it one of those situations where you don't know who's going to have a greater impact based on the role of the team when you talk about Nick Richards and Dieng? Because if the Bulls had the expectations of playing Buzelis and playing Jalen Smith and potentially getting a closer look at Lachlan, you know what I'm saying? Did you feel like you couldn't find a way to have Dieng involved with the lineup with the Chicago Bulls? Like, it goes back to looking at these things and just saying, like, hey man, I understand that we gutted this entire team, but then it goes back to, okay, so what now? You know what I mean? Is it just, we're not gonna quote unquote skip steps? The number one thing we're focusing on is the draft pick, but then how can you, if the focus is only on the draft pick, how are you going to somehow forget about the development of the others? Or is your sights just completely set on focusing on Jaden Ivey? It's interesting to see how this whole thing is going to be playing out, because someone could argue that it's a miscalculation of scouting. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to say that Nick Richards can't go out there and be more productive for the Chicago Bulls, but a 22-year-old player who's receiving more opportunity and has been chilling, receiving some minutes, playing about over 30 games the last few years, will receive more minutes now in his, now that he's moved on out of OKC. You will want to exploit that. You want to see how that all is going to work out for said player. But hey, it could be a missed opportunity. I think 3 games is just a small sample size again, but I think that we could be going back and putting this in that category of saying, hey, we could have had this player, but instead we went this way. And then we go back to the original point of a lot of people who support this team. These guys in the front office, they just don't know what they want to do. Hopefully they prove me wrong. We'll see. We'll let this thing continue to play out. I'm not ready to go out there and just stamp it and say that they missed on an opportunity right now, but I will say what my eyes shown me, look like the young player over there in Milwaukee now can ball. And he looked like he fitting in well over there, and he can do a number of things that could have been really, really big for the Chicago Bulls. But I'm not counting Nick Richards out yet. We'll continue to monitor it and see if he's going to be able to play well for the Chicago Bulls. He's had some minutes and he has done some things for the Chicago Bulls. You know what I'm saying? Every game has not been great, but two out of the 3 games, scored in double digits for the Chicago Bulls. Had 7 rebounds in his first game with Denver, then 6 rebounds in the game versus the Nets, and we'll go from there, I guess. that's just how we got to chalk it up to the game at this particular moment. But hey, let me know your thoughts down below. I tried to provide as much context as possible for you all to make that determination. If you want to call these guys idiots, I'm not arguing with you. That's it. But hey, let's talk about Montes Buzelis, man. As you all know, Montes Buzelis will be partaking in the All-Star events this weekend, starting later today with celebrity games and all that stuff. Montes Buzelis will be a part of the Rising Stars game, and they talked about and they asked him his thoughts on a number of things, but one of the things that I found very, very interesting is Montes Buzelis has his sights set on making the All-Star game. He went out there and said this: everything is exciting for me. When they talked about the trip to Los Angeles for the All-Star game, anything you get to participate is an honor and exciting. But I'm not gonna lie, yeah, I want to be in that Sunday game for sure. I'm fully capable of becoming a great player, and this is just the process it is going to be for me. But I know for a fact that every year I'm going to get better as a player. I know that will happen. I'm going to work extremely hard, push myself until exhaustion to become that player. End quote from Montes Buzelis. I just love the kid's hunger, man. I just love the kid's hunger, and I hope that some way, somehow, the Chicago Bulls can suddenly wake the fuck up and put together a solid team to where guys like Montes Buzelis can flourish. One thing could be said that Josh Giddey potentially could have been in this All-Star game, but injuries kind of held him back a little bit. But I want to also give Montes Buzelis an opportunity to go out there and succeed as well. So some of these games that we're watching and seeing Montes Buzelis struggle and then get it going, but then ultimately in some games playing less minutes than Patrick Williams is just a damn slap in the face. He should be getting as much opportunity as possible to go out there and correct this game and get better. There's no way that P. Will should be ending games playing more minutes than fucking Montes Buzelis. That's just how I look at it. We know what P. Will is. We're still trying to figure out if Montes Buzelis can take that next step. Give him as many opportunities as possible. And hopefully over this break, when the Chicago Bulls will be able to wind down, get a couple practices in, and be able to, become more familiar with each other. I'm not banking on a bunch of wins, but hoping that the basketball would at least look a lot better. And I'm hoping that Montes Buzelis can get more involved in a lot of things so we can really, really dive into the type of player that he can be for the Chicago Bulls. You know what I'm saying? I believe Montes Buzelis can be whatever the hell he wants to be. I just think he has that mindset that is not like a lot of people or a lot of players we've seen come through this organization or has watched throughout the entire league. The mindset of the kid, he says a lot of stuff, and when he goes out there and he makes plays, he's talking his shit, and I love it. Now, there is some things that he has to improve in, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, right now, with no Josh Giddey and a number of other players out, Montes Buzelis should be getting a bulk of the shots. in a bulk of the opportunities to go out there and prove himself, to show what he's really made of and the capabilities, so he can at least flash something to where we could be like, yeah, this kid can take the next step. Give him an opportunity. And that's why I stand with it. But I'm happy that my man wants to go out there and make that all-star team. And I think it's in his near future if the Chicago Bulls do right by him. If they don't do right by him, he'll be out the door. I don't see Monty Buzelis sticking around if the Bulls don't do right by him. And then it'll be another indictment on the organization, man. We gotta be better. We have to set these guys up for success. I like how, you know what I'm saying, we're getting guys to go out there and receive some opportunities like Jaden Ivey and Rob Dillingham. But the top of my list is Monty Buzelis to receive those opportunities. That's just me. That's me being a very, very selfish. Not even gonna hold you. I want to see the other guys take steps up. I want to see who can stick around for the long haul. But my main priority is Monty Buzelis selfishly. That does not mean it has to align with the Chicago Bulls. It's just letting you know where I'm coming from. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all, man, for tuning in to another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you always see red, and y'all already know. We're going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac. Gang.